The stories contained in this podcast are the recollections of the guests we've invited onto the show. We are an outlet for people to share their truths, and we accept no legal responsibilities for the stories contained herein.
I'm Kendra Sheets.
And I'm Rich Gill.
And this is Enough, a podcast that aims to shine light into the darkened corners of the music industry while discussing the ways we can and should improve ourselves and, in turn, our community.
Welcome back to the Enough podcast and our information-driven subset called Subtext. While I don't completely know the exact demographics of our listeners, I am very sure of one thing. The subject of today's episode is someone that almost everyone will be at least a little familiar with. He is a member of the best-selling boy band of all time. On today's episode, we'll be discussing the accusations made against Nick Carter of the Backstreet Boys.
Now, let's set the scene. We figured we would explain a little bit about the boy and girl band craze of the 90s. This was coming out of the period when what was known as grunge was dominating popular radio, and before pop, punk, and ska, which had their own problematic issues that we will also cover at some point, took us into the new millennium. It was a time where music was being actively marketed to a younger generation than ever before. Tastemakers like Lou Pearlman held contests to discover the next generation of stars and would combine them together into groups, write nonsensical love songs for them to sing, and force sex appeal onto them as they were children. And don't worry, we will be addressing Lou Pearlman also in another episode down the line.
Once groups like NSYNC, the Backstreet Boys, 98 Degrees, LFO, 3LW, and the Spice Girls were formed and marketed, each member then faced enormous pressures to keep up their looks, to establish a personal brand, to keep finding ways to make the news, and to keep their band as relevant as possible. This pressure, especially for the tweens and the teens in these bands, was enormous. And Nick Carter felt that pressure. He entered the ring of stardom at 12 years old, his fame helping his parents with overdue bills and debt. At a very young age, he felt burdens that adults struggle to grapple with. He grew up so quickly and was rocketed to international stardom so rapidly that he, as others have described it, became very entitled. He was used to getting his way and was not used to being told no. This behavior caused issues in his personal life with his 4 other siblings.
If you're interested in doing a deep dive into the Carter family dynamics and their dysfunctionality, a 4-part documentary series was released on Max and Investigation Discovery at the end of May, which discusses the Carter family, especially Nick and his younger brother Aaron. This documentary, Fallen Idols, also covers sexual assault and abuse allegations against Nick Carter, the death of his 2 siblings, Aaron and later Bobby Jean, and also contains interviews from alleged victims, family friends, superfans, tour managers, and on and on. This documentary is actually what spurred us to discuss these cases, so let's start with the lawsuits.
The first lawsuit was filed in December 2022 by Shannon Shea Ruth. She accuses the pop star of sexually assaulting her on his tour bus after a show in Tacoma, Washington in February of 2001. She was 17 at the time, and he was 21. She said that once on the bus, Carter handed her a strange-tasting cranberry juice beverage that he called VIP juice. He led her to the bus's bathroom and told her to get on her knees as he pulled down his pants and then ordered her to perform sexual acts on him. Ruth began crying, and she alleges that he then raped her on the bed of the tour bus. Her lawsuit also claims that he infected her with HPV.
Once this lawsuit hit the headlines, it wasn't long before a second lawsuit was filed, as usually happens. This one by Melissa Schumann, who used to sing and perform in the all-girl band Dream. Dream was formed via a talent contest and signed to Sean Combs' Bad Boy Records. Feel free to check out episode 51 to hear all about Sean Diddy Combs' allegations. Anyway, Schumann initially accused Carter of raping her in the early 2000s, but because the statute of limitations had expired, the prosecutors declined to file charges. However, in April 2023, after California expanded their window on the statute of limitations, Schumann was able to file a lawsuit which accused Carter of sexual assault.
Schumann is the kind of main character in the first episode of the Fallen Idols documentary, and paints a very vivid picture of what the teen band industry was like in the late 1990s and the early 2000s. She discusses the pressures from the labels to romantically connect members of the girl and boy groups of the time to help generate buzz around the bands. Nick had expressed interest in her prior, and the two actually had talked over the phone under the watchful eye of the label. But Melissa had a boyfriend and expressed that she wasn't interested in Nick in that way, and therefore nothing further happened at that time.
In early 2003, after she left Dream and had moved into acting, she was working on a teen horror film called The Hollow. Nick was added to the cast after her, and one day on set, he asked if she would like to come over to his apartment and play video games. That's such a gross move. I've heard that.
Such a kid move, too.
It is.
He was like 20-something at the time.
Yeah. So she agreed as long as she could bring a friend. So she and her friend went to Santa Monica to his apartment. When they got there, Nick and his friend Tony invited them to drive over to the liquor store with them, where they picked up alcohol, and when they got back to his apartment, Carter made mixed drinks for all of them. Schumann had little to no experience with drinking, but wanted to seem cool, as anyone would in that situation. Carter allegedly asked her if she wanted to hear some of his new music, which, where have we heard that one before? It's kind of like these skeezy guys all have a script that they share and read off of.
One thing I wanted to add was that when he goes to make cocktails, according to Melissa in the documentary, she is someone who was like very sheltered, raised very religious, was saving it for her husband, didn't have a lot of experience. And so she had not really had a lot of experience with drinking. So when they're like, well, what do you want? She was like, I really don't know what to drink. I don't know what goes well in a mixed drink. And in the documentary, she stated that he mixed something with cranberry juice, which, harkens back to what we just talked about with Ruth. So anyway, the two of them went into the office where he was going to play her some of his new music, and they started kissing. You can watch the doc and have her retell the entire story. There's a lot there, and it's a lot to listen to. But long story short, he ends up pulling her into a bathroom where he forces oral sex on her. Then he brings her into a bedroom where then he forces himself on her. When Melissa refused and she says no over and over and mentions that she was a virgin and that she was saving herself for her future husband, he says to her that he, Nick, could be her husband, which is like major ick vibes. It's like really, 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 really gross in a million different ways. And then after that, he ends up raping her. When it was all over, Melissa just ended up staying still in the fetal position and just waited until the morning. So she felt safe to leave with her friend. Later, she alleges that Carter gave her HPV. And after she has removed herself from the situation, she ends up telling multiple people about the alleged rape, including the friend who was there that night, her parents, her therapist, and her talent manager, Nils Larson. There's more to the situation with her talent manager, and in the documentary, there's a screen after she tells some of her stories, which states the following text. Quote, I confided in my manager about going to the police and reporting the crime. He told me Nick had the most powerful litigator in the country, end quote, cautioning her that coming forward would destroy her career. In a statement on screen, Schumann's previous manager denied that she told him about the alleged rape. That manager is Nils Larson. And Nick's powerful litigator that Melissa was warned about by Nils is Marty Singer. Now, in 2019, Larson was named in a lawsuit in which Ricky Garcia, of the boy band Forever in Your Mind, accused his ex-manager of sexual assault. Garcia said that his manager passed him around to other men in the business. One of those men included Nils Larson. And to fight that lawsuit, who did Larson hire? No other than Marty Singer. Okay, all right. That was a bit of a tangent, but I think it needed to be said. So, all right, Rich, just get us back on track with this.
All right. All of these people end up being around each other, which is terrifying.
Yeah.
Now, the third lawsuit was filed by a woman who is going by the initials AR. She stated that Carter had sexually abused her multiple times beginning around August 2003 when she was 15 years old and he was 23. During that incident, she was on his yacht in Florida along with his family and friends. She had connected with the Carter family because she was friends with one of his sisters, and she started spending a lot of time at the Carter household as the parents were drinking, fighting, and on the verge of divorce. In the Fallen Idols documentary, AR, eventually revealed to be a woman named Ashley, stated that his family and those surrounding him spent a lot of time partying and drinking. Because of that, the kids were alone a lot. She stated, quote, "There were no limits on what they had and what they had available to them," end quote. Carter picked her off from the group and brought her into the cabin where he got her drunk off 151 and forced oral and vaginal sex on her. He had allegedly told her to keep the encounter a secret.
Days later, he asked her to meet on his tour bus, which is located on his property, again in Florida. He poured them drinks and then asked her to perform oral sex on him, and she declined. But he kept pestering her, and eventually Ashley said that she gave in. They ended up having sex again, and he did not use protection. Then there was a third incident on the yacht, once again, in which they were drinking. He grabbed her, carried her to the cabin, forced himself on her, and then let 3 friends watch through the skylight of the boat, which she didn't realize until later because she was so intoxicated. Ashley stated that during this whole process, when she was friends with the family and spending time in their Florida compound, she maintained a close relationship with Aaron Carter, Nick's little brother. She confided in him about the incidents with Nick, and Aaron told her that he didn't have a great relationship with his brother because of similar situations with younger girls. Ashley returned to her home in Pennsylvania and ended up telling her mother. They filed a police report in December of that year, and after investigation by the Florida PD, the police decided against prosecuting Nick or the Carters. It was after that Ashley was then diagnosed with HPV.
After Ruth initiated the first lawsuit, Carter countersued, publicly stating that she was an opportunist who took advantage of the Me Too movement. He also claimed that Ruth was groomed by Melissa Schuman's parents to make allegations against him. The statement reads, quote, "Since November 2017, Carter has become the target of a small, opportunistic group of conspirators engaged in a harassing, defamatory, and otherwise tortious campaign to ruin his reputation for the purpose of advancing their own agendas," end quote. The countersuit states that the lawsuit's goal was to interfere with Carter's business opportunities and give the accuser a moment of fame.
We've said it before, and we'll keep repeating it. A moment of fame will never equal out a lifetime of internet hatred, ridicule, doxing, and vitriol that survivors have to face when they come forward. One of the main themes of Fallen Idols is how much the fan base supports or tears apart the players involved in Nick Carter's life, all due to his celebrity stardom. No amount of temporary recognition is worth that kind of torment, especially when the abuser has a fandom that is willing to defend them to the bitter end.
The Fallen Idols documentary introduces additional topics which leave room for additional speculation, such as summation of Nick Carter's relationship with Paris Hilton, in which she was seen with bruises on her body and a busted lip. After they broke up, he was quoted in the media calling her a prude and saying that she needed drugs and alcohol to have sex comfortably. Now, mind you, this was after she was shipped away to that terrible Utah camp for kids who won't stop acting out. So she had faced some extremely severe trauma. In addition to that, Kaya Jones, one of Carter's previous girlfriends and member of the Pussycat Dolls, speaks about their relationship and the unfortunate way that it ended. The cases against Carter are still ongoing. Carter and his legal team have denied every claim of wrongdoing. And through all of this, all the allegations, the news articles, the lawsuits, everything, the Backstreet Boys have been playing sold-out shows across the world throughout this process and continue to garner unwavering support from their fans across the globe. So, tell us again how cancel culture is real?
Enough is a podcast centering on surviving abuse, harassment, and assault in the music scene. To help get the word out, please like and subscribe and share with your friends. If you have been on the receiving end of harm from someone, be it artist, venue owner, booking agent, audience member, or someone else, and would like to share your story on a future episode, please reach out to us at thisisenoughpodcast@gmail.com. All correspondences are kept confidential.